to the Talent Optimization Podcast, the go-to podcast for CEOs and HR professionals wanting to bridge the gap between the strategy and tactical implementation of talent optimization within their organizations. Through interviews, predictive index, and personal experience, your host, Traci Scherck, helps you discover the facets of talent optimization from both a CEO and HR perspective to truly create the dream team for your organization. Are you ready? Let's get started.
Welcome to 2022 and the Talent Optimization Podcast. My name is Traci Scherck, and we are thrilled to ring in the new year, right? One of the things that we really looked at in our reflection on 2021 and our planning for 2022 is how we take care of others, how we take care of our staff, how we lead, how we grow as ourselves, and how we grow those individuals that we're working with, right? Whether it's a new hire coming in for their first day, as we know, the busiest day of the year for applying for jobs is the first workday back after the holiday break. And guess what? We are there. So as we look at how we're going to take care of our staff this year, one of those things that we want to do is talk about mentoring. So our topic for this month is mentoring. And mentoring has so many different meanings behind it. With those different meanings, we're going to dive into a couple of them. Throughout this month, we have a couple different guests that are going to come on and talk about different mentoring programs that they have implemented inside of their organizations. So there are three key definitions that we'll cover this month with mentoring. So we have mentorship, which is that trusted counselor providing guidance and support on a range of professional issues. And that could include career progression. Now, there's a couple different types of mentors, right? So a mentor can be an individual that's really working with someone that is pretty far in their career that's looking to up level. A mentor could be someone that's really like that new hire buddy. And those words can be used interchangeably. So I just wanted to find what it is so that as we talk about it, you go, yeah, we either have that in our organization or, oh, I would like that. That would be really nice. So with that being said, the next one that we're going to talk about is an apprenticeship. And there is a thought here on how we tie in apprenticeship and mentorship inside of organizations. McKinsey has a phenomenal article that came out late last year, really talking about how do we build an apprenticeship and a mentorship program inside of our organizations, specifically about that one-on-one interaction of training and the learning that an individual does as we up level in our roles. And then the next thing that we are going to talk about is the formal and informal mentoring programs, because they are both out there. And the formal programs typically have some sort of an application process to them. You're taking individuals through this. They're formally meeting with a mentor. There are specific outcomes that is meant to be met there. And mentoring is different than coaching. In February, we're going to talk a lot about how we create a coaching culture inside of our organization. Mentoring is more that one-on-one conversation to up level, where coaching is the way in which we give feedback and really create the space for an individual to think for themselves in that space that's safe, which is psychological safety, right? So when we create psychological safety, what we're doing is we're creating a safe environment for an individual to grow and to name what those key things are. So let's dig into the different types of mentoring. So as businesses emerge from the pandemic, we know that more than 80% of them face critical gaps in the skills needed to build resilience, and only 42% of employees are taking up employer-supported reskilling and upskilling opportunities. I don't know about you, but that sounds completely off to me. And it sounds accurate, right? So why are only half of our staff taking up reskilling and upskilling opportunities? So word on the street, right? So what I'm hearing when I'm chatting with our clients about this is there's not the time. There's no time for reskilling. We're so focused on doing the thing to get it done that we're not reskilling and upskilling. And I get it, right? And we see this as well. So the question is, how do we create some of that reskilling and upskilling that's within the context of the job that we're currently doing, that we're building it into the fabric and the infrastructure of the organization. The other question is, if you look at your staff that have left, if you look at those staff that, are part of this great resignation, what were the reasons that they left? And if you haven't done exit interviews with them, exit interviews can be valuable. We would prefer and we recommend that we do stay interviews, because then you have the ability to make the change, right? But if you don't know why individuals have left, this is a really, really great question. And it's beyond money, right? Because money is that number one thing that individuals are going to say when they leave. And it's so far beyond that. So what exactly is it in the organization as to why they're leaving? A lot of it is they don't feel supported either by their manager, by their team, or they don't have those upward mobility opportunities. So with those things being said, how do we specifically create that in the organization? And one of those ways to do that is to build in mentorship programs in order to do that. And guess what? There's so much to learn, and there's not a lot of time to do that formally. So we need to do that day to day. And this takes us as leaders inside the organization being very cognizant about what that is that we're doing. So let me give you an example. And this is one of my own examples, right? So I have a project that needs to be done, and I assign that project out and say, hey, this project needs to be done. Here's the high level goals. Boom, boom, boom. Here's what I want this to look like when we're done. And I walk away, right? This is typical Maverick fashion. And if you don't know what a Maverick is, it's one of the behavioral profiles that Predictive Index has. So there's 17 of them. And they really help us, know ourselves better and know specifically how we need to be self-aware in specific situations. This is one of those, okay? And who we're working with, so that as we're working with other individuals, we know here's what that person needs. And if I'm managing them, I know that I need to manage them in a certain way. And they also know that if I'm completely stressed out, this is where I will default to, right? So it's an understanding, and it's kind of a dance to say, how do we both give and take a bit to meet the business needs of the organization and to ensure we have an awesome working environment together. So back to my story. I assign this task. It's high level. Boom, boom, boom. This is what we need. This individual is super detail oriented and very process focused. I don't have a process that I gave her, right? I just said, this is what I need. So I come back and I see it's not what I want, and it's not what I need to deliver to my client. So I have a couple different choices here, right? I can get upset about it and go and quickly go through and rewrite the whole thing, send it out to the client, get it done. It's done. Box check, done. But let's go back to this relationship, right? Did this individual learn anything? Did they learn what needs to happen in order to up level to get to specifically the business outcomes that we're looking for, and specifically the project outcomes and outputs to the quality and the quantity that we're looking for in this specific situation? The answer is no. And if we ask a deeper level question is, how did you both feel about that situation? On both sides, the answer is not very good, right? And that starts to breed frustration. So that's one way of doing this. Let's take a look at another way of doing this. Another way of doing this is right? So whoever that leader is, really pay attention to how do we delegate tasks, and ensuring that we're delegating tasks in a way that meets what the individual needs, right? So whether it is there's very specifics to it, or you're creating a process in your system that says, we are requiring that you give us feedback. If you have a question, I want you to ask those questions. And when those questions are asked, I want you to answer that question yourself, and then I will answer it for you once that's done. So that is a system that we've built inside of our organization, and it's called our questions list. And that questions list is then out there for any employee that's interested and, curious about, hey, I have this situation. I wonder if someone else has asked that before, that I can learn myself what I need to do there, right? So that's one way that we can do that. Another way is, instead of me just going and completing this task and getting it done and being frustrated about it, I can say, okay, when does this thing need to be done by? I'm going to be doing the work anyway. What would it look like if we had a working meeting and we sat down together and really completed this project together so it still meets the quality expectations that our clients expect, the quality expectations that our organization expects, and we're up-leveling this employee at the same time in a way that doesn't feel threatening, right? That psychological safety is incredibly important. That is a form of mentoring. At the end of that, that individual has been given the one-on-one guidance to get to where they need to go so that the next time that they do it, the goal is that they can do it on their own. Now, if this happens 3 or 4 times and they still can't do it on their own, we potentially have a performance issue that we need to address. However, if I, as the leader, continue to do this thing on my own, what happens is more and more piles on my plate. My overwhelm goes up, which means I'm not necessarily self-aware in the situations I'm working in with my staff, which resignation, right? So with that being said, those are some key things that we can look at. And the article that's in the show notes from McKinsey does a really great job of lining there's 4 key steps to this. And those 4 key steps that they have is 1, create a clear organizational expectation for both learning and teaching. So what is that organizational expectation? And that is for every single individual in every single level of the organization. The second is to build apprenticeship skills in every employee. And so you can replace that word with whatever you want, right? Apprenticeship, mentorship, leadership, whatever, right? But you need to build those skills in every single employee so that they are always bringing others into the conversation so that we can learn about those things together. And the third is to identify skill sets that individuals need to build. So what exactly do they need? One of the tools that we love is a tool called the predictive index because it allows us to really see what an individual's behavioral strengths are so that we know, 1, we have them in the right role, right? That's a key to retention. 2, we have them on the right team that's aligning to the strategy so that we can ensure that there's that collaboration within the team. So my strengths are someone else's weaknesses and my weaknesses are someone else's strengths, right? That's really going to allow us to get those key things done. And there's also skill sets within that. So where do we need to be self-aware? Is it skill sets like, let's say that it is business writing skills or Excel skills, right? So when we can identify what those skill sets are and bring in some professional development and some training to support them, what we're telling them is, we value you, we want you to grow, but we're going to do it in the context of your current job because there's so much growth within your job. And then the fourth is to be broad and inclusive about who can be involved in these programs. As you're going to hear throughout this month, we're going to talk about new hires and individuals that have not been in a supervisory position for it, but have the aptitude for it. Heather Dobson from Corporate Contractors and I will have that conversation next week. We'll also have a conversation about more formal mentoring programs and what that looks like for high potentials and individuals and organizations that are looking to grow. And then we will have a conversation at the end of the month that's specifically related to those external power partners and how they mentor others. And these can be attorneys, these can be accountants, these can be leadership coaches, right? But there's different ways you can mentor and coach others, and it doesn't always have to be in that one-on-one fashion that we talked about today. Here's what we know. Overall, research has shown that 76% of professionals believe that mentors are important for career growth, yet only 54% of respondents do not have a mentor, and among senior level staff, only 8% have had a mentor. And I will name for you that having a mentor had been a game changer for me early in my career. And it's something that was so important. It wasn't a formal mentorship. It was very much an informal mentorship, but it was that individual that saw me bigger than I saw myself, that also we had built the trust that she could point out, that's probably not going to serve you very well. right? So those are just some things you want to think about as you build a mentorship program. So a key takeaway for our executive listeners is this: leaders who tangibly and visibly invest in their own learning and are transparent about their vulnerabilities create that psychological safety. That creates an environment where individuals can learn and also teach, right? It gives others that permission. And for our HR listeners listening in, create the programs that are formal, that allows individuals to be recognized for that, and also continue along their career pathway inside of the organization so that you don't lose them because they didn't feel that they were either respected or had the opportunity to necessarily grow. So with that being said, if any of this is interesting to you, we have a 6-month program that will be starting in early February. You're going to see the launch for it at the end of this month. And that is our Hire program. And that takes you all the way through how do we get from business strategy to those business results, specifically focusing on hiring. This is the compliance portion of HR. This is looking at compensation in our org charts. This is a formalized structure and process for recruiting, pre-boarding employees, going through the orientation, onboarding, which includes a mentorship program. So if this is interesting to you, check it out in the show notes, and we cannot wait to see you next week as we talk with Heather Dobson from CCI about their mentorship program. Have a great week.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Talent Optimization Podcast. You'll find more tools and resources for CEOs and HR professionals looking to bridge the strategies versus implementation gap of talent optimization at elevatedtalentconsulting.com. We've also created a free, valuable resource for you to begin bridging the gap called the Talent Optimization Foundation Membership Program. You can access it for free at elevatedtalentconsulting.com/foundation. Be sure to tune in next week for another episode to learn more about talent optimization and creating a dream team for your organization.